Um, let's see, in terms of tracking, since I do offer free downloads, let's see, I use Google Analytics. They don't show me how many downloads I get, but they show me the visitors to my site. And I've had visitors from over 100 countries now on all continents but Antarctica. Although there's one listing in Google Analytics that say something like not specified, and I'm hoping maybe that means Antarctica because I'm here. Selecting all kind of persons. That would be nice. Many books I'll get numbers from, Smashwords, Obooko, which offers only PDFs. Other sites I can't get numbers from, but I'm really don't feel a need to know the exact number because of the way that I'm offering these. It's like, you know, if you download a copy and you want to send it to a friend, you can do that. You know, so basically I allow for free distribution, all other rights reserved.
So I just had a duh moment. No, I didn't think of that before. But you have control of your work and you can put it on multiple locations.
Right.
Yes. With a traditional, I mean, that's the only location until you maybe someday get your rights back.
Yeah, and you know, now Kindle, as Keisha says, is expanding, which is wonderful. But you know, you had a situation when the Kindle first came out with their DX. The big thing about the DX was that it was going to allow you to access ebooks in 100 countries. That did not include Canada.
Canada now has it.
Canada now has it. It did not include books in any language other than English. So, you know, they're catching up. But the one thing to keep in mind with Kindle, and sometimes a kerfluffle happens and sometimes it doesn't. When you download a book from Kindle, you are not buying that book. You are leasing it. You are buying a license to read it. And not only does that mean that there are DRM, digital rights management issues, where you know you have cases if you want to transfer a file from your Kindle to your computer, you can't because the DRM is limiting you. There was a hue and cry, I forget if it was a year ago or 2 years ago, where Kindle just removed a whole bunch of books.
Yes.
I think 1984 was one of them, Animal Farm, that sort of thing. And so if you had bought that, you couldn't access it. You know, because you didn't buy the book. You bought the license to view it, and they pulled the licenses for a while. And there was just this firestorm in response to that. But whenever you're dealing with an outfit like Kindle or a similar kind of publisher, you're dealing with those distribution issues. And so I have not heard many people talk about distribution rights, but one of the reasons why I offer free downloads the way that I do is that, you know, the bottom line is I get to some degree control the distribution rights. And when I'm offering, hey, distribute this as far as you can, then that's unlimited. So that's another way for me to get the word out as far as I can.
I recently spoke with a cousin of mine that was self-published, and that sounded wonderful to me until she told me how much her cost was. I was overwhelmed by her cost, and I've since read up on packages from different companies that do that, and they're all over the map. And I'm wondering, you know, they include so many various things from, and she told me too that after she started it, she kept getting offers and more offers and more offers to upgrade to so many other things. Can I ask you how much your initial cost was to publish your book?
Sure, that definitely is me. I'm on with CreateSpace. They used to be called, I think, BookSurge.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know that, but that's what they used to be called. I only knew them as CreateSpace because I was on HarperCollins' online slush pile called Autonomy, and they had an ad. So I clicked on the CreateSpace ad because it said, get published today, and I was like, oh yeah, click, let's go see. I spent 2.5 hours just reading everywhere I could on their site, and I decided to go with them. Because I had had went and seen the packages, and I'm a single parent, so that kind of money is never even in front of my face. So I needed something a little bit more affordable. But with CreateSpace, it cost me $100 to do this one to start, and this one cost me $100.
And so what did that include?
So
for your
what that
production?
included, because I got an editor myself, and the cover art was done by a college friend of mine. He's done actually all my covers. So there was no cost involved there. But I paid $39 because they have what they call a pro plan. And that gives you the extended distribution she was talking about. And it allows it to go out through all the Amazon stores. Any third parties can buy through them because it is a publish on demand and print on demand company is what CreateSpace is. So I paid the $39 for that, and then the additional money came from doing proof books because you have to pay for a proof copy to to visually check your book, make sure that's what you want. I did a couple of different copies because we kept changing the cover and we were doing other things. So by the time it was all said and done, both of them cost me about $100 just to start up. And
Okay.
then, go ahead.
And that's one perfect issue, one perfect.
Yeah, that was after I got it to my satisfaction. It cost me
Yeah.
that, but that was with the biggest part of it was the $39, and it's a one-time fee. And then what they do is you only have to pay $5 to renew your plan every year after that. That's it.
And then if you want another copy.
Yeah, then you pay for your copies, but you're paying it at the
Excellent.
wholesale, you're not paying for the price that you are
So you buy your own copies and
Mhm.
distribute them?
Yes.
Distribute them yourself?
But Amazon does, you get Amazon sales because they put it in the Amazon roster. You do your own distribution too, because I do conventions and author events and stuff like that. So those you have to pay out of pocket for. But just in general, just to start, like to get your first copy, get it all done, get yourself set up, it was only $100.
And then, how about your website? Because I saw you have a very nice website. And so that you did yourself?
Yeah, the website I did using a program called WordPress. I installed it myself, however, they do have WordPress.com where you can actually, it's free, and you can sign up with them, and it can double as a blog or as a website because they've got different features that you can do. All the websites for each of the series is WordPress. It's all WordPress based because I love it because you can do plugins, you can do special widgets, and that's the stuff you see in the sidebar, like the music players and the different things I have. And I just love WordPress for that. And I also on the list for you guys put places for free websites that they're really easy to use because I know not everyone's tech savvy. Webs.com, they have a drag and drop type of interface, so you can, like if you wanted to put something in, you can drag and drop it, like images, and it's really a rather simple one to use. But yeah, I use WordPress. I use the WordPress software, and I love it. I can do it by hand because that's how I started back in the day. I'm a web designer, so I can do HTML by hand, and that's how my website used to be. But then a friend said you should try WordPress and make your life
So
easier.
it's all templates?
Templates.
Now, I do my website by hand, which, you can probably tell looking at it because it's not all that sophisticated, but it has a lot of info on it and pictures and links and that sort of thing. My ISP is Earthlink, and my basic Earthlink account gives me 8 websites to play with, and each website can hold up to 10 meg. So to have the series on my website, I've used, I think, 5 out of those 8. And I have another one for my business. My partner has another one. We have a joint one. So, I have all my files up on my website. Again, the drawback of the basic is that when I exceed my bandwidth, it closes down. And that's why on my main website, which is still open, I have a link to a blog entry. I keep a blog through various places, Blogspot, LiveJournal, that sort of thing, where you can click on that link, and here's where you can get all sorts of URLs to, here's other places where you can find free downloads. And because most of my books, most of the files are not on my main deviation site, which has gotten all the traffic, you can still access those files directly by clicking on those links. So I've just redirected traffic to my blog entry. To put the ebooks out, basically all that I've spent, other than a lot of time, is to get the materials, is to get the CD cases, the CDs. I have my covers printed on paper, and just to make the promotional materials. There was a wonderful article in the SOQA Bulletin, that's the newsletter of the Science Fiction Writers of America. His last name is Carver, forget his first name offhand. He had a wonderful article on resources that you can use to make your own ebooks if you are tech savvy enough. And I use that as my jumping off point. There's a bunch of freeware that you can download. Calibre is the most versatile. But even Calibre, if you compare it with some of the other freeware, if you want to save on file space, Calibre falls behind some of the other freeware in that. If you are interested in producing your own ebooks and you're tech savvy and a do-it-yourself type of person, go to my website there, click on the Deviations blog. I have a link to my blog specifically for Deviations. My most recent entry there is a checklist of all the steps that I followed to make all my ebooks. The most important thing to do is to keep a checklist. And the way that I went about it is kludgy, just because of the computer systems that I use. So it's very idiosyncratic, but just to give you an idea of what's involved. Because Smashwords, when you submit to them, they want a particular format. My HTML for the books is very stripped down to give it fewer moving pieces for when I then convert that into other formats. One of the most popular formats out there is EPUB. That's something you can read on iPad, Nook, Kindle I think reads EPUB now. Mobi is Kindle based. There are other formats for PDAs, and people even use that anymore, for e-readers, for Sony e-readers. So, you know, I've tried to use as many of those as I could just to make the books accessible in as many ways as possible. There are even ways to make PDF files rather than do a straightforward PDF file, Adobe Acrobat. You can give it the option to reflow. And what that means is that if you have a little screen, it'll fill that screen. If you have a larger screen, it'll fill that. So it makes that Acrobat very flexible. It uses up more space, but it gives you more flexibility. So there are all sorts of techie things to learn if you want to produce your own ebooks.
You mentioned something that clicked in my mind. Okay, we have different web browsers. We have Google Chrome, we have IE, we have, you know, then we have different ebook formats. Is there an issue with the different formats that are out there? Because sometimes if you put something up on IE, it doesn't look the same in Google Chrome. You have to go back in, and you would probably know all
Yes.
this. So how do you know that if you publish your own ebook, that it's going to fit, look the same wherever people open it up?
Okay, well, like with the Kindle, they have a program called Mobi Pocket, which I finally downloaded because I was suggested, and it was really amazed me how things actually look. Because in the Kindle dashboard, when you start to upload stuff with them, they have a little preview screen. And yeah, it kind of works, but you don't really get the full effect. So with the Mobi Pocket editor, which is strictly to work with files that you're going to put up on the Kindle, you can get they have a reader portion of it, so you can see how it'll look in the Kindle. I tend to just stick with the PDF formats as the base one, because a lot of the e-readers can do PDF. They either do PDF or EPUB, definitely, and then sometimes some of the others like the Sony and others, they have specific formats that you can use that work the best, but they can still take the PDF or the EPUB. So if you can find, and they have editors out there, a lot of freeware, you have to kind of go looking for stuff, but usually the PDF, whatever you look at in the Adobe Reader, that's how it will look if they read it on the computer screen. Probably the best thing though, I mean, like I have an e-reader, and so sometimes the way it looks on the Adobe is not necessarily how it'll look in here. And I don't know how to do it any other way except by those means. And either you'll get people that'll tell you, Keisha, I read the ebook, but in mine it did this, this, and this. Because I have a book reviewer. He has a Sony, one of the older Sonys. So I'll get a phone call, Keisha, did you know there's a page break here? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because you're pulling it up and you're looking in the PDF and there's no page break. But his e-reader broke it that way for whatever reason. So there are still issues with it, but normally when you get an e-reader, they'll tell you what format works the best. So when you're trying to go get books in that or download them or even format them, try to look to see what they're telling you works the best with the software.
Yeah. Unless you absolutely have to do otherwise, stripped down is better.
Yep.
So when I convert stuff to HTML, which I use as my base for transferring into the other languages, I will strip that HTML down. So CSS codes, I'll strip those out. I'll just do very basic, here's a paragraph, here's where it's bolded, here's where it's italicized. Because that makes transferring the material easier. There's a certain code, I forget what it's called, it's in my checklist blog entry. I will be very careful with diacriticals. So for instance, decor or protege, those are words that I use in the books, and that E has an accent. And I have to convert that into kind of a basic Unicode before I translate that into different languages, otherwise it shows up really, really funky.
Definitely really funky. Go ahead.
I don't know, maybe I'm approaching this wrong, but my theory was going to be to first approach any publishers that were interested in the genre that I'm writing, and approach ones that would, accept multiple transcripts, and also unagented. So maybe, should I rethink this? Because my thinking behind this is to get as many people seeing it at one time as I could. But maybe I'm not the best representative to do this. Maybe I would have a better chance elevating myself a little more, being represented by an agent.
Okay. Probably the best website for you to check out, because it has a sidebar of all the basics for dealing with traditional publishers. Go to Nathan Bransford's blog. That's on my handout. Yeah. He has in the sidebar, I think it's called The Basics. Everything from your first contact with a publisher to your first contact with an agent. Now, Nathan Bransford himself, up until recently, he was an agent. And he has quit that business. He's now a full-time author. He's just had his first book published, and he's been contracted for more. But he knows the ins and outs of all of that. And for fiction writing, you need to have a complete manuscript before you show it to anyone, before you send out your first query letter. There are also many publishers who will not look at simultaneous submissions. Now, I've had people tell me that you should cheat, but I don't. And I don't think it's a good idea, because if they catch you out, then you're blacklisted. But I know writers who do, they don't care. They just send multiple submissions, and whatever fallout, they figure they'll deal with it.
Check the submission requirements to whoever you're trying, even
Right.
with the agents too, because
They're all
everybody's
different.
all over the place.
Yeah.
But check it, because someone will say, yes, we take multiple submissions. No, we don't.
Mhm.
Look to see their turnaround time. Okay.
I see there's a huge difference there. That's why I thought I would submit to, multiple people who accepted multiple submissions.
Just be careful. That's which we missed this one, but I'm gonna back up for a second. E-publishers are good because a lot of them they have a little bit faster turnaround times, and it gets you out there too a little bit quicker. But they tend to a little bit more than the traditional allow for the multiple jumping around, because they know that your time, as you were saying, is money, and they don't want to hold you up. So they out of probably everybody is the fastest when it comes to looking at stuff, deciding if they want it, and then going from there. And there are so many e-publishers out there that you just have to kind of look around and find. But they start you off in ebooks, and sometimes if you sell enough ebooks, they'll convert it, like she was saying, for one of your books, they put it in print afterwards. So that's something else to look at. You're still being published. These are actual publishers, so you would still have that going on.
This is all in the contract. This is all outlined in the contract at what point.
Your contracts tell you what you're going to get, royalties. How long the rights are. They're going to hold on to the book, and that's something else to be aware of when you're working with the traditional publishers. Look to see what they have for your ebook rights.
Yeah.
They'll say digital rights is what it says in the contract, but be careful, because some of them are not on the up and up. They're trying to sneak stuff in that's not really.
They want to tie up every aspect.
They want to tie you in knots so that you can't get out.
It's a business, they want to make money.
They want to make money.
I don't know if he is still doing this, but an agent named Michael Kabongo, Kabongo, on his blog once a year, he asks people, I forget if he has them send him a sample chapter or a query letter or whatever, but he kind of opens himself up. He says, just send it in. I will plow through all of this stuff and see if I may want to represent you. But, he kind of throws that out on his blog. He used to at least once a year. But
So this is unpublished authors?
anyone. He's a literary agent. And Bransford, I don't know if he still does this on his blog, but he has open critiques where his readers will submit material for him to look at. I know he did a lot of that when he was still an agent. I'm not sure he's still doing that sort of thing. So there are opportunities out there.
I ran across that on one site, and they wanted you to send in, I think it was your first chapter or 2 chapters, along with the check, and I didn't know if that was, I know it's taking up their time, but I don't know, is that a typical thing to expect?
No. It's not, but it's starting to happen more and more. There was a very reputable agent, I'm trying to remember her name, who is now charging money to look at stuff. People are still being warned away from that activity, but at least in the case of this one person, I can't remember her name offhand, she's got a stellar reputation going back decades, and she's doing that now.
The rule was always if they're asking for money up front for anything like that, and also agents, if they say you have to pay us,
yeah,
you need to be running.
There is a rule that says money flows to the writer.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of time, as you were before, how much time do you spend writing in comparison to how much time you spend promoting?
Wow, I think I've spent more time promoting myself than I actually have writing. I don't know. With the exception of this book that took me 7 years of on again, off again writing, I don't know, this 9 months per book here, this one actually only took 6 months. It's probably the least amount of time I've spent, but I spent the last 1.5 years promoting. So, I mean, and crazy promoting. I don't know, I promote in between writing, so it's just, you have to kind of pick and choose your battles, I guess.
Yeah, same here. There's the writing of the novels, and I mean that's done. And I pretty much did not start looking for publishers until I had the first 3 written, because I thought I was only going to do a trilogy. Surprise, surprise. And then once this was published, I really got into promoting full gear because I had a product. So I would go to conventions, I would do events like this, I would do blog entries and that sort of thing. And whenever I come out with something new here, it doesn't take that much to post on Facebook and do a blog entry and post on Twitter and that sort of thing. And then during what free time I have, I'll go to different forums and websites. I still have a very long to-do list for the release of Second Covenant, because just a whole bunch of trips to doctors and tests and that sort of thing. Balancing, and then Keisha does this a lot too, balancing one's creative life and promoting life with one's home life.
Yeah, I've got kids.
My main piece of advice is do what is comfortable for you. No one knows your needs but you do. You're going to see a whole lot of blogs out there saying, do it this way. But really, do what's comfortable for you and find the right balance that you can work with.
Okay, I have a follow-up question too. Concerning this promoting, you suggest things like websites and blogs and Twitters and all that stuff. And I do not have a computer background like you guys do, which helped you in the first place. And I wish I did, but I'm certainly going to find out about it if I want to promote my book. Now, I read once recently that agents want to know that you are computer savvy and that you have a website and all that stuff. If you don't have one, is it going to be more impossible to get published?
It'll likely be tougher.
Impossible, but
It'll likely be tougher these days. For one reason, agents and publishers will do a lot electronically now. It's no longer the case where you're going to get a big package in the mail of galleys to check over. Mm-hmm. They do it by email. Mm-hmm. The stuff that appeared in here, and also this, and in this magazine, all of that, I got galleys electronically, which I had to read and then send an email back saying, yes, this is fine, or you need to do some corrections here. This I still got paper galleys in the mail. But of everything that's been put out, not counting what I put out myself, everything else I've gotten electronic galleys to check.
How about your submissions then?
I do electronic. Yeah.
A lot of them say that now. They say it on the website. We do not accept, and they call it snail mail, but we do not accept snail mail. You have to email us. You have to
Now, you
email
can still
us.
do both with SMLs, but they've only recently switched so that they now allow electronic submissions as well. They were holdouts for a long time. You had to send them paper stuff.
So you send it via email or you
Yeah,
send it on a disk?
You attach it to an email.
Okay.
Well, some of them won't allow you to attach, but you have to, once again, it goes back to you have to read what they say in their submissions. And the biggest reason why people get thrown into the slush pile is because they didn't follow the directions on the website. So whoever you're trying to query, get to, whether it's an agent or a publishing house, please, 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 please read the directions, follow the directions. That way you have a better chance of being looked at. If they catch you doing one thing wrong, they chuck you. They won't even open your stuff. They're like, oh, they can't even follow directions, don't want to deal with you.
Yeah, depending on the specs and the length of what you're submitting. Some of them will say, okay, we will only take material that you put in the body of your email. That's generally for shorter stories, flash fiction, poetry, that sort of thing. For longer pieces, they'll say, we'll take only DOC or RTF is usually the way they put it. DOC is your old MS Word, not DOCX. A lot of people still will not take that. RTF is rich text format. And also it used to be, and still to a great extent, you have what's called standard formatting for manuscripts. William Shunn has a wonderful website that deals with standard formatting, SHUNN. You can Google him and you'll find that out. That being said, a story of mine was published several years ago in a magazine called Helix. It was an e-zine, it was a paying market, a well-paying market. I got a 3-figure payment for that story. They are no longer in existence. A lot of these magazines come up and they don't last too long. They go back down for a lot of them for fundraising reasons. But when I also, in the case of Helix and in the case of Unspeakable Horror, some now want you to send query letters for stories, for short stories. It's not just for novels anymore. When I got the go-ahead to send my submission to Helix, I was given the specs that they wanted the manuscript in single-spaced 14-point Arial, which is about as far away from standard formatting as you can get. But it has to do with the way that their webmaster puts it on the site. So it's very important to read the specs and see what people want, because it's a lot less standard than it used to be. It's just all over the map.
How do you go about, if you have, say, you've got your title, is there a place you need to research that title and make sure it's not being used by someone else?
No. People share titles. I mean, like for example, mine is called Moonbeams, and you would be amazed at the number of people that have that title. I didn't even know it. I was like, oh wow, look, there's like 7 people ahead of me. But hey, I'm like, hey, at least I was on the first page. But it doesn't really matter, because when you're copywriting your work, you're copywriting what's inside the covers. You're not copywriting the title.
So you are copyrighted?
Yes.
Here's a definition of copyright. First of all, titles cannot be copyrighted. So if you want to write a book called Gone with the Wind, you can do that, and no one's going to say book. Copyright means putting something down in fixed form, okay? If you put down a poem in crayon on a restaurant paper napkin, that poem is copyrighted because you have put it down in fixed form. There is a difference between copyright and registering copyright. Registering copyright is where you make those printouts, you fill out a form, you send your check to the U.S. Copyright Office, and you are registered. Will that protect you from copyright infringement? No. However, if your copyright is infringed, unless you have that registration in place, courts will generally not bother with you. So that's the importance of registering copyright if you want to protect your work. I have certificates for the first 4 books of my series. I've registered my copyright with the other 2. They are in the hopper. They have not, I haven't gotten the certificates for that yet, but I've sent in the materials. Technically, because they are so far backlogged, technically, as soon as they receive your material, you are protected,